Welcome again to TTW Tales that were conceived to delve into the most unexpected and often overlooked chapters of history, stories where passion, politics, and circumstance intertwine in ways that defy easy explanation. Today, we cast our spotlight on one such episode, the Football War of 1969. Despite its seemingly light-hearted moniker, this conflict was a dramatic confluence of national pride, historical grievances, and the fervor of a beloved sport that quickly escalated into violence and tragedy. In the late 1960s, the political landscape of Central America was fraught with tension. For decades, unresolved issues, ranging from disputes over land and immigration to economic inequality and cultural differences, had festered between the two countries. These simmering resentments provided the perfect backdrop for conflict, waiting for a spark to ignite the powder keg. That spark arrived in the form of soccer, the sport that, in Latin America, is far more than just a game. Soccer is a powerful symbol of national pride and identity. It unites millions under a shared passion, yet in the charged atmosphere of 1969, the soccer field transformed into an arena for deep-seated disputes. In the weeks leading up to the World Cup qualifying matches, both nations buzzed with anticipation. Newspapers, radio broadcasts, and lively conversations painted these games as epic battles not merely of athletic skill but of national honor. When the matches began, the intensity was palpable. Stadiums filled to capacity erupted with chants and cheers, each goal, foul, and near miss taking on symbolic significance. For supporters on both sides, the outcome of the match was about more than sport. It was a measure of national pride, a moment of collective vindication or humiliation. As the games unfolded, tensions escalated rapidly. Emotions that had been building for years reached a fever pitch, and the result of the matches became the tipping point. In a climate where every pass and shot was scrutinized, the victories and losses were interpreted as reflections of deeper societal issues. The outcome on the field ignited an explosive response. Political leaders in both El Salvador and Honduras, already sensitive to public discontent, began using the games as rallying points to stoke nationalistic fervor. What might have been a spirited sporting contest transformed almost overnight into an event that set the stage for armed conflict. In the days following the decisive matches, the situation deteriorated swiftly. Border regions, areas that had long been disputed, turned into flashpoints for violence. Military units on both sides mobilized with unprecedented speed, and soon the simmering tensions exploded into open combat. The rugged terrain along the disputed frontier, with its narrow mountain passes and dense vegetation, became the setting for fierce battles. Soldiers clashed in skirmishes that rapidly escalated into full-scale engagements, as both nations strove to assert control over contested lands. The human cost of the football war was profound. As the conflict raged, lives were lost on both sides, not only among soldiers but also among innocent civilians caught in the crossfire. Families living in border communities were forced to flee their homes, and the once peaceful villages were transformed into scenes of chaos and sorrow. The devastation was not limited to the immediate violence. The war left a deep emotional scar that would take decades to heal. For many, the conflict was a tragic culmination of long-standing grievances that had finally erupted into bloodshed. Perhaps one of the most ironic aspects of this conflict was how it underscored the dual nature of soccer in the region. Soccer has long been celebrated as a unifying force, a way to bring together communities across economic and social divides. Yet, in 1969, the same sport that usually served to unite the people instead became a symbol of division and hostility. The very passion that made soccer so beloved also made it a potent emblem of national rivalry. In this case, the game that once brought joy and community spirit ended up fueling a fire that led to widespread violence. In El Salvador, decades of political instability and economic hardship had sown seeds of discontent among the population. Many Salvadorans felt marginalized and oppressed by a system that offered them little hope for a better future. Meanwhile, in Honduras, long-standing disputes over land rights and the challenges posed by waves of immigration had created an environment in which even minor provocations could be interpreted as existential threats to national identity. These entrenched issues were the tinder that allowed the flames of conflict to spread so rapidly once ignited. As the days of fighting passed, the rapid mobilization of military forces and the escalating violence forced both nations to confront the full weight of their unresolved disputes. International observers watched in disbelief as what had begun as a series of soccer matches spiraled into a conflict that claimed lives and shattered communities. In response to the outbreak of hostilities, diplomatic efforts were soon set in motion to bring an end to the bloodshed. International mediators, alarmed by the rapid escalation, worked tirelessly to broker a ceasefire. Both El Salvador and Honduras, now facing mounting international pressure and the sobering realities of war, agreed to step back from the brink of further violence. Even as a ceasefire was negotiated, however, the memories of those tumultuous days remained seared into the collective consciousness of both nations. The legacy of the football war extends far beyond the immediate consequences of the fighting. For historians and political analysts, the conflict serves as a fascinating case study, a stark illustration of how the passions stirred by a sport can, under the right conditions, transform into a vehicle for political and social upheaval. The answer lies in the complex interplay of historical, social, and economic factors that were already present long before the whistle blew on the soccer field. In the aftermath of the war, both countries were left to grapple with the long-term impact of the conflict. In El Salvador, the experience deepened the sense of injustice and isolation felt by many of its citizens, further entrenching the political divisions that had long plagued the nation. In Honduras, the war intensified debates about immigration, land reform, and national identity, issues that continue to shape its political landscape to this day. The football war, though short-lived, had a lasting effect on the way both nations viewed themselves and their relationship with each other. Internationally, the conflict prompted a wave of introspection about the role of sports in society. Analysts began to explore the ways in which seemingly benign cultural events could be imbued with political significance. The story of the football war resonated across borders, serving as a cautionary tale about the potential dangers of allowing national pride to override reason and diplomacy. The conflict underscored that beneath every sporting event lies a web of historical tensions and social dynamics, a reality that is sometimes too easily overlooked in the excitement of the moment. In the days that followed the ceasefire, efforts at reconciliation began, albeit slowly and with great difficulty. Both governments faced the arduous task of not only rebuilding physical infrastructure but also healing the deep emotional wounds inflicted by the conflict. Grassroots initiatives sprang up along the border regions, as local leaders and community organizers worked to bridge the divides that the war had so brutally exposed. These efforts, though challenging and often fraught with setbacks, represented a determined attempt to forge a more peaceful and cooperative future, a future in which the passion for soccer could once again be a source of unity rather than division. Across the region, artists, writers, and filmmakers took up the task of memorializing the conflict in their work. In the years following the war, a rich body of cultural production emerged that sought to capture the multifaceted nature of the football war. Documentaries, historical novels, and even songs were dedicated to recounting the events of 1969, each offering a unique perspective on a conflict that had been as much about identity and pride as it was about territory. These creative works not only served to keep the memory of the conflict alive but also provided valuable insights into the human dimension of the war, a reminder that behind every headline and statistic lay real stories of loss, courage, and resilience. For many who lived through those turbulent times, the legacy of the football war is both a painful memory and an enduring lesson. Veterans, survivors, and ordinary citizens alike have shared their personal accounts of the conflict, stories that reveal the complex interplay of fear, anger, and hope that defined those fateful days. Their testimonies have contributed to a broader understanding of the war, one that goes beyond the simple narrative of soccer turned violent, to reveal the deep-seated issues that fueled the conflict. These personal narratives have become an essential part of the historical record, reminding us that every conflict is composed of countless individual experiences and emotions. Internationally, the outbreak of the football war sparked a wave of diplomatic concern. Governments and organizations around the globe watched with alarm as a sporting event escalated into armed conflict. The United Nations and other international bodies soon became involved in mediating the situation, underscoring the global implications of a war that might otherwise have been dismissed as a regional skirmish. The incident forced policymakers to confront the uncomfortable reality that even seemingly isolated events can have far-reaching consequences, a lesson that remains relevant in today's interconnected world. Over the decades, the memory of the football war has served as a powerful reminder of the complexities inherent in national identity and the human condition. The conflict challenges us to consider how deeply cultural passions, especially those surrounding a sport as universally adored as soccer, are interwoven with political, economic, and social realities. It highlights the precarious balance between unity and division, a balance that can tip dramatically when historical grievances are allowed to go unaddressed. Today, as both El Salvador and Honduras work toward reconciliation and mutual understanding, the lessons of 1969 continue to inform their political and cultural landscapes. The once searing wounds of the conflict have begun to fade, replaced by a cautious optimism that peace and cooperation can prevail even after deep divisions. Yet, the echoes of that tumultuous period remain, serving as an enduring call to remember the past so that its mistakes are not repeated in the future. For scholars and students of history alike, the football war stands as an invaluable case study, a vivid example of how a moment of sporting passion can encapsulate a far more complex set of historical dynamics. It teaches us that behind every headline, every match, and every cheer lies a deeper story of societal struggle and human ambition. It challenges us to look beyond the surface and ask critical questions about the forces that shape our world, questions that remain as relevant today as they were in 1969. As we reflect on this chapter of history, we are reminded that every conflict, no matter how brief, leaves an indelible mark on those who experience it. The football war was not simply a battle over a soccer match, it was a manifestation of decades of accumulated grievances, a stark reminder of how easily the passions of a game can be transformed into a catalyst for violence. And yet, within this tragedy lies an opportunity for healing, a chance to learn from the past and to build a future where dialogue and understanding replace division and strife. Thank you for joining us on this journey through one of the most unexpected chapters of modern history. As we conclude today's episode of TTW Tales, let us carry forward the insights and lessons gleaned from the football war of 1969, a poignant reminder of the power of history to both inspire and caution us. May we always remember that the forces that drive us, be they passion, pride, or even rivalry, must be balanced with wisdom and empathy to ensure that the divisions of the past do not define the promise of the future. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and until next time, this has been TTW Tales, uncovering stories that remind us of the enduring power of history to shape our present and guide our future.